I'm Vinnie. What a show we have for you today. And my phone is ringing. I'm not going to answer it. I will not answer it. I had it standing by because Al just got out of court. Al Wunsch is a real lawyer. This is the Tangent Podcast. But what we're talking about today is lawyers and whether or not Karen Reed, her defense team, is going to get tossed from this case. Prosecutors absolutely pushing for it. The judge has grave concerns. There was a huge hearing that will continue. The judge thought it'd be half a day, took the whole day. It's pushed to next week. This is real drama. This is real drama. I can't imagine that they'll be tossed, but something's going to happen. The judge has to make a decision, has to make a finding here. But everything that we saw and heard in that courtroom, to me, is pointing in one direction. And I don't think it's good for the defense, but we are going to talk about it. As I mentioned, Al Wunsch III, he's a real lawyer, was really in a real courtroom. He's here now. And also, we've got the radio legend, Jonesey, with us as well. This, ladies and gentlemen, is the Tangent Podcast.
Vinnie and the Tangents, a true crime podcast. Vinnie has the blue eyes, Al cracks the jokes. Jonesey stays behind his shades, entertaining all the folks. It's Vinnie and the Tangents, true crime podcast. Load up all your comments, hit those super chats. Let's go smash that like button, so we can all have a blast. Vinnie, Al, and Jonesy on the job. They're the Sugar Hill Gang of true crime. They're telling stories of days gone by. They take crime and turn into a good old time. It's Vinnie and the Tangents, true crime podcast.
Here we go. You know, you hear that music, you know it's Friday. Everybody should be in a good mood.
And
Everybody.
away we go.
Yeah, everybody should be in a good mood, but perhaps not Karen Reed's defense team.
Ooh.
This, I don't know how it's going to turn out, but that's what we're going to try to figure out here, because I think there is a real chance that the defense team gets tossed, and it's about, and this is the part that shocks me, right? It's about like discovery issues, like not providing certain things when you had them, reciprocal discovery. In all that we saw in the Karen Reed trial and the shenanigans by the lead investigator, Trooper Proctor, the shenanigans by Lally at the first trial, presenting a video in reverse that completely changed everything until they got caught. I don't understand why this should be such a huge deal, but it's being treated as a huge deal. And Al,
Yes.
I remember being so shocked during the trial. Right. So I'm reading some of these comments as they fly by, and sometimes something catches my eye and it distracts my mind for just a moment. But we'll get to those. We'll get to those. So number one, when that video at the trial was presented, the most important part of this case is of the Karen Reed case, you know, during the course of trying to figure out what happened and what the evidence was the right tail light, whether it was cracked or not. And so left versus right was a huge deal, like an enormous deal. And the prosecutor and the witness put in front of the jury an inverted video and did not acknowledge that it was inverted and completely misrepresented everything. To me, that's as egregious as it gets, whether you did it on purpose or not on purpose. But there was obviously the defense took advantage of it at the trial in front of the jury.
Right.
So it was actually like a gift to them. But at the end of the day, that was wrong. That was really bad. It was misrepresenting evidence when left versus right is everything. So now here we are, and maybe they did, maybe they didn't, right? The judge will find the facts here. Didn't provide some discovery in a timely manner, right?
Right.
But at the end of the day, is that worse than completely misrepresenting something in front of the jury? Like, to me, at worst case scenario, it's a push. It's an absolute push. And nothing happened to the prosecution for that misrepresentation. Nothing happened to them.
Well, yes.
So why should anything happen to the defense if they perhaps, and the argument is, well, I'm taking the prosecution's argument for what they say it is. I'm not saying I necessarily agree, but they're saying it was a purposeful misrepresentation in front of the jury. Okay, it's 1-to-1. Why should they get tossed off the case while the prosecution, like nothing happened? It was a big nothing burger in terms of, ethical violation, etc. Go ahead, Al. I'm sorry.
No problem. And first, hola, Tangenistas. And I just, Vin, if I can just go off on a tangent, I'd like you to tell the audience what you received this week. Okay, that was silver in color.
Oh,
and that's all thanks to them. And I think that it's something that we need to extend our thanks for getting over 100,000 subscribers. And this is the item that we received, and so I just want to bring that up. Look at that.
Well, you can't really see it. You can see when it's here. So this, ladies and gentlemen, this is what it's all about. This is why we do what we do. It's all about the accolades and to have a silver play button. No, but really, this is a big deal. It's a real big deal. I'm gonna release a unboxing memo so you can see the moment that I'm unboxing this and seeing it for the first time. But what's amazing about this is that it's when you hit 100,000, you get this recognition here, which again, it's a big deal. It's a big deal. And it's a big deal, not because of me, not because of Al, not because of Jonesy. It's a big deal because of the mods who are working. It's a big deal because of the folks in the chat room. It's a big deal because of the people super chatting, the people supporting, and obviously the 100,000 who took a moment to say, hey, I want to subscribe. That's a commitment. That's a commitment. And we thank you because we know that we're going to end up in your algorithm. And we really thank you for that. But I am going to, there'll be a full video released of the moment. It's in production right now, but this is in my hands. And thank you 100,000 times.
And we're going for the gold, folks.
100,000 Tangent fans can't be wrong.
Yeah. Well,
all right. So now going back to
the goal is 1 million, Al, just so you know.
I understand that. And that's why, but you know what? You have to have something to shoot for.
You gotta have hope. You gotta have. No, we'll get there. We'll get there.
What makes that rubber, that little old man think he can move that rubber tree plant?
Mm-hmm.
Everyone knows man
can't move a rubber tree plant,
but he has high.
Well, but while we are, thanking people.
Time to get happy. It's time to get funky. It's time for us to smile. 'Cause here comes Mick Spunky.
Mick Spunky with an early greeting today. Thank you, Mick Spunky. Greetings, Vinnie, Albert, Jonesy, Mods, and y'all chatters from the Spunky one. Mick Spunky in the house. Thank you. As you were saying, Al.
As I was saying, the problem in this instance is that, and I can't understand what the defense was thinking, quite candidly. You have 3 aces, okay? 3 aces in your hand, okay?
What are the 3 aces?
The 3 aces are the 3 individuals from ARCA that put together a tremendously good defense report. You've got that in regardless of whether you hire them or not, the report is the report. Why not bring that out? Why go that extra step to try to get a phony fourth ace and say, and we had nothing to do with this report. We've had no communications other than to set up their, coming in to testify and things and to get their curriculum vitae so that we can get that information out and everything else. And, but we didn't negotiate with them. We're certainly not paying them. We certainly had no substantive communications with them. And then this comes out. Okay, this finally gets brought out. I mean, the documents are provided as they are. There are gaps, and that's what Brennan has been bringing up. And Brennan is the prosecuting attorney on it, who did a very, very phenomenal job. I also thought Alessi did a nice job, but Alessi is like kind of tap dancing in a minefield, because he's got a situation that is a little bit of a problem. When you start seeing that there are emails that are directed only to Jackson, and then the licensed attorneys from the state of Massachusetts are not included on them purposely, that doesn't sit well with the court, and it doesn't sit well with me. And it means that there was something going on that should not have been going on.
Well, here's the thing. Here's the thing, Al.
There's no legitimate.
There's this. You have to put this all in perspective. As they're getting ready for the trial, right? We know there's this federal investigation, and they're waiting to get all this discovery from the feds. And the feds said, we're going to hand some stuff over. So all of this work was being done in this federal investigation that neither the prosecution nor the defense in the Karen Reed case had any privy to any of the information. Then when they get the information, they dig through it and they find these reports from these people who were hired by the FBI. That's not a lie. They were hired by the FBI to provide their opinions and their report and what they felt. So from that point forward, anyone can call them. The defense decided to call them, obviously, because they're going to help them. But you can't just, what are you going to do? Process an out-of-state subpoena? You've got to communicate with them. So, hey, you're coming in to testify. And what I believe happened here is that this is a 1,000% awkward situation. I don't think this has probably ever happened before, where there is a parallel federal investigation of what happened here. And there's an expert from the parallel investigation that is going to testify for you, right? It's really a strange scenario. And on top of it, there are limitations placed on how the communication can go by the U.S. attorney. It's uncharted territory, but it's not just about the lawyers. It's also about the experts, and the experts don't know how to necessarily respond to all of this. And I think a lot of what has happened here is because the experts are placed in a very strange position where they day in and day out make a living as experts testifying in court, right? They do their evaluation, they testify in court, and it's always the same. One of the sides is hiring me. It's always the same. But this was weird and this was different. And I don't think the witnesses understood it versus the lawyers, because the communication is two-way. And some of the communications, including the part about here are some questions that would be good to ask on direct, are initiated by the witnesses, not by Alan Jackson, but by the witnesses in the midst of this trial. And Alan Jackson didn't use those questions I don't think he did, as his guide to doing this. But there was first of all, there's no harm in all of that, number one. And number two, and that was demonstrated. Number two, where was the prejudice? How was the jury misled? Then you get to the thing about the bill, about the being paid. Okay. There was a discussion in the beginning because, hey, you're going to testify. You're a professional. You're not a lay witness. I guess you're going to get paid, send the paperwork. Then the Fed said, stop, do not go forward with that. And then the trial started. Once the trial starts, this is not on the top of their mind. everything happens. And then after the trial, a bill is sent. Okay. So now a bill is sent afterwards, not expected, but we're not going to not pay them if they're sending us a bill for their time and efforts. Like that's, I think all of this is initiated because the expert witnesses were placed in an awkward position by the legal system, by the U.S. Attorney's Office, by the judge, and by the lawyers involved in this very crazy scenario. And I went on very long, Al, but I had to get that out.
And look, and this is not anything regarding a position regarding Karen Reed, whether she's innocent or she's guilty or anything along those lines. I'm talking from a procedural standpoint. I have used my adversary's experts' reports in cases when my adversary has said they were not going to use it because the report came out and was favorable for me. And so I would want to be able to bring that in. It's just the way it was manufactured, okay, is where the problem lies. The fact that it made it look like these guys were completely, had no affiliation, no working relationship, had just kind of stumbled into the courtroom because they were subpoenaed to show up there. And then Alan Jackson was asking questions, and then they came up with a report.
Well, whose fault is that?
That's unfortunately it's the attorney's fault.
No. I'm going to disagree.
I don't disagree. I think that's the way it's got to be, because the attorney is the one that has a duty, okay, to make sure that nothing is being perpetrated upon a tribunal that's fraudulent.
Jonesey, he just said duty. He just said duty, Jonesy.
I did say duty. The judge, the lawyer has that duty.
Okay.
The lawyer, and why do you think, Vinnie, they kept the names off of the attorneys that are licensed in the state of Massachusetts when there were emails going back and forth? That sends up a flag that they knew that this was really skirting on an edge. Okay. And Alan Jackson's not a Massachusetts attorney.
It was division of labor. It was division of labor. Unetti's working on certain things. He's working on other things.
Every case,
before the trial begins. This is all happening on the eve of trial.
Any case,
like right before a trial.
In any case that I am co-counsel on, I am getting CC'd on everything. Okay, getting CC'd on everything. Because if I'm the point man, I got to know what's going on in everything. And I know it's a pain in the butt.
Can I tell you this, Al? Again, the witnesses who are communicating, who would be sending the stuff back and forth, they do not know how this is even working. They don't understand any of it because they haven't been hired by anyone. You know what I'm saying? A normal expert gets hired, and once you are hired, you know who you're working for, you know who's in on the case. Here, they're completely coming in from the outside. It's a very confusing, unusual situation. The real problem here, and this is a problem I see all the time, is that we don't tell the jury the whole story. The jury was shielded from this federal investigation. So, of course, there was even more mystery than there should have been about where these witnesses came from. If our system of justice, and perhaps the judge in this case and her rulings, would have just allowed the jury to know the truth, that there was a federal investigation of the prosecution and the investigators in this case, and that's where these experts came from, ladies and gentlemen, then there wouldn't have been confusion. Because in some of the interviews that jurors have done afterwards, they didn't understand where these experts came from. It was confusing, and it was confusing because of the rulings of the court and the limitations of the court in keeping the jury from understanding all the facts. And that's a problem that is so rampant in our system of justice, that we put too many blinders on the jury, and all of a sudden they don't understand what's going on. And in the end, they discounted these experts because they didn't trust them, because they didn't know where they came from.
May I interject here? If they had let them know that there was a federal investigation, would that have not affected the jury to the point where they probably would have gotten a not guilty?
Well, they did on counts 1 and 3, but that's another story.
They would have gotten a not guilty that was sanctioned by the court.
But it's the truth. Like, it's the truth. If witnesses are testifying who are part of some other investigation. Like, you can't just pluck them in there. And like, jurors are real people. They can smell when they're not getting all the information they should be getting, and they hold it against whoever's presenting the information. So in the end, because the jury didn't understand where they came from, it was the defendant, the accused, who ended up getting prejudiced by all of this. And it should not work that way.
But then whose fault is that? That's our lawyer's fault.
No.
Okay, because this could have been worked out differently, and this could have been set up better. Okay, and there's no reason why that it had to go this way and this method. Okay, which was very circuitous and was not being frank. Okay,
who's not being frank? We're not being frank with the jury about where these witnesses came from.
Look, the defense could have very easily said, "This is the situation. We've had communications with them. Okay, we've had some discussions. We are going to compensate them for their time." Okay, there would have been nothing wrong with that. And guess what? The opinion, okay, the bottom line, as Alessio kept saying, is it is in cement. Okay, it's cemented there, and it would have been fine. Okay, but
what's the remedy? Let's talk about the remedy.
By playing the game that you've got, you're bluffing. You have 3 aces, now you got 4. Okay, they hurt their client. It would have been a lot simpler for them to just come out with it and say, "We saw it, we loved it, we hired them." Okay, and I don't think
they didn't hire them.
But they did hire them because Alessio says we retained 2. Okay,
what?
He says we retained 2 of the 3 experts. Okay, we retained 2 of the 3 experts. That means they hired them. Okay, they sent them a check for $23,000. That means
after the trial, after they received a bill that they weren't expecting.
You don't get your bill before the trial anyway. You always get bills from your experts.
Oh, wait. Have you ever hired an expert who didn't get a retainer, Al?
I always have a retainer out on an expert, but then the amount of and that point is brought out by the jury. And everyone knows. Yeah, you're and look, this is how it always ends up happening.
We're talking about being frank. We're talking about being frank.
The expert is on the stand and they say, "Okay, Mr. Jones, you are you're an expert in this field. Yes. How many reports do you generate a month? I do 23 reports a month. And do you get compensated for those reports? Yes. And how much do you make a year doing these kind of reports? I make $250,000 a year making these kind of reports. $250,000 a year making these kind of reports. Really? Would you say most of them are on the side of the defense? Well, yeah. Oh, okay. So $250,000 paid by defense attorneys. How many times have you been an expert for Mr. Wunsch in his cases? I think maybe 10 or 15 times that I've worked with him. Okay, no problem. Always on the defense side? Yeah. Oh, yes, on that. And this is what they try to do to take apart the juries. And then a good expert will say, when the defense counsel or when the prosecutor or whoever, the attorney is cross-examining him, and you're being compensated for your time. Counselor, the same way you're being you're being paid for your time. Okay? The same way that everybody involved, the judge is being paid. Everyone here is being paid. I'm being paid also. Okay, that's fine. And they all know it.
That's a normal case, Al. This is not a normal case. The way this should have gone was, okay, sir, and who hired you to take a look at this case? They couldn't say that. They couldn't say, "Oh, the FBI and the Department of Justice hired us." And what was, what were you supposed to do? Blah, blah, blah. Did you get paid by them to present this report? Yeah, I got paid. How much did you get paid? You got paid by who? The federal government, by the FBI who was investigating this? Okay, thank you. They weren't allowed to tell them that. That's the actual truth. So when the court prevents the jury from getting the actual truth, that's when you go down a slippery slope, and all of a sudden the jury gets confused. Who got prejudiced at trial by all of this? It was the defense, because this jury did not pay attention to those experts, because they didn't trust them, because they didn't know where they came from. And that was a result of the limitation of keeping the truth from the jury about where these experts actually came from. We were creating some sort of faux truth in all this. And that's the real problem, Al. That's the real problem. But let's talk about remedies. Let's presume that it's a mistake, right? It's bad. It's a fraud on the court, just like that reverse video was a fraud on the court. So let's talk about remedies, because the ultimate question is, for me, I think, because this is what the prosecution was seen like they're pushing, will Karen Reed's defense team get tossed? Gringa saying, thank you, Gringa, before her next move, Bias Bev better check herself. What I'm saying is goose gander argument. And I think Jonesy agrees with me on the goose. What's good for the goose is good for the gander.
I would concur.
Yeah. What is a gander, Jonesy?
You know, I was going to ask you that.
I have no idea. I have no idea what the gander is.
Is it perhaps a goose of a certain sex?
I maybe. I don't know. But I've said that a million times. So here's the thing, Al. If nothing happened to the prosecution for the fraudulent presentment of evidence to the jury, then the same thing should happen to the defense for their misleading the jury, right? The crimes are similar. The punishment should be exactly the same, which was nothing.
Crime. And first of all, it's not crimes.
Well, not a crime, but I'm using crime with a small c. Okay. If they both do the same thing, the punishment should be the same. That's all I'm asking for. Is that a quid pro quo, or is that a goose gander argument? Al can't argue with that, Jonesy. Do you see? He can't argue with that.
Well, if I'm not mistaken, I believe a gander is a male goose, but if we're going to be technical on that, so now we have that.
Jonesy says one thing and he's correct.
There you go.
So
that's it. I'm out.
What should be done? Should the defense team be tossed? No, yes. I don't believe it should be tossed.
Okay, we agree.
I believe maybe Jackson should be tossed.
We don't agree.
Because Jackson, well, and my basis on it is because he's not a licensed attorney in the state. Okay, when you come in on a pro hoc vice, okay, you have certain obligations that you have to fulfill, and you have certain things that you have to be cognizant of. They purposely set this thing up so that Jackson would take the hit rather than the firm. Okay, and that was readily apparent in Alessio's comments. Okay, so the only one that's going to be gone that has a chance of being gone would be Jackson. I do not think that she should lose her defense team. Okay, I think that it would be a huge problem at this stage of the game for a new team to come in and take over this matter and try to do it. Certainly wouldn't be within the time frame of when this is scheduled to go to trial in April, so, or whenever it's scheduled for. But what I'm saying is that the team is going to stay. Jackson, the court has no remedy against Jackson. That's where the problem comes on this. I mean, the court can do things to defense counsel that are licensed attorneys in the state. They can bring them under ethics complaints and violations and things along those lines. Jackson they don't have that ability with Jackson. They do not have that ability with Jackson because he doesn't have a license in New Jersey. What's the worst thing? He has no license in Massachusetts. What's the worst thing that can happen? Nothing. Okay. There has to be some ability. That's what attorneys have. We have a license. Okay. And that licensing is so important. And if you screw up, okay, you gotta go speak to the man. And the man can do many things. They can suspend you. They can.
So a judge can't file a complaint in California or wherever else he's licensed.
No, because who knows what? Like, it's the judge can't. I mean, a judge could do it. Whether or not California is going to do anything about it.
Fine. Why don't you fine him? Why don't you fine him some money? Fine him some money, or fine him the same amount of money that Lally got fined for putting in that misleading evidence.
But once again, Vinny, the court doesn't have jurisdiction over him.
Okay. Well, why should he get punished? But nothing happened to the prosecution for their egregious misrepresentation of a crucial.
They did happen to the prosecution. That they got. You already said it. 2 of the 3 counts were knocked out. Okay, so something.
They were, but they weren't. They were, but they weren't.
But it was significant that if that is accurate as to what the jury's you're saying the jury said. I don't know for sure.
So the punishment is determined by when you get caught. Does
No.
that sound fair? That you
When
get
you get
punished worse if you get caught later? You get
Well,
punished.
look, you can make a mistake. Look, there are mistakes that go on at trial, okay, that happen. All right, because you said it just before. It's trial. You know what that's like. You've got a lot of pressure on you.
Insanity. It's
There's things to
insanity.
that, things to the other thing. And you know what? There are mistakes. Okay. I mean, Brennan even admitted to some mistakes with regards to characterizations he had made.
Oh, wait. Let's talk about that for a second. He makes this huge argument about uncovering all this stuff about the bill and is telling the court throughout this 45-minute argument that we got all this information and we had to pull teeth to get it from the feds. And then all the way at the end, he says, oh, my bad. The defense gave us all the information. Like, come on.
He made a mistake. Okay.
Exactly.
And he took
exactly. But what's going to happen to him for making that mistake? Nothing.
It's
nothing.
He's simply putting evidence in front of the court. Okay, and he took the hit for what he did. I'm not agreeing with what Brennan is doing. But I am impressed. I was impressed by Alessio's arguments. Okay, I thought he did a nice job putting everything right down the line. That's why I don't think the defense firm is going to be thrown out. Jackson is the only sacrificial lamb I see coming out of it.
There shouldn't be any. I don't think there should be any. If you want to do something, you fine him. Hit him where it hurts in the pocket.
Yeah,
don't punish the defendant, punish the lawyer, not the defendant. You're punishing Karen Reed. You are punishing her with her right to counsel of choice. Why should she pay the price? The lawyer should literally pay the price from his pocket if you feel so strongly about it. And he should pay the same amount of money that Lally paid.
But the problem is that there is an issue. I mean, even a fine aspect of it, Vin. So what's going to happen? He says, screw you, I'm not paying the fine. Goes back to California. They're going to sue him in California for the fine.
Pay the fine.
Yeah, a lawyer's not going to say, screw you, I'm not paying the fine. But
you don't know lawyers very well then, Jonesy. I'll tell you, they're the cheapest people you'd ever want to meet.
This is how they got Gotti. They couldn't beat his lawyer, Bruce Cutler. So they removed him from the case. Now, I guess they had pretty good grounds since he had been indicted. But nonetheless, they removed him from the case, and
So Al, let's answer this question, and both of you answer. Jones, you go first. Is this a sign of strength or weakness from the prosecution that as they prepare for the retrial of someone who they believe is a red rummer, and they believe they have evidence to prove it beyond a reasonable doubt, that they're spending all this time trying to get the defense team kicked off the case? Is that a sign of strength or weakness for the prosecution case, Jonesy?
Well, what I just said about Bruce Keller, if you can't beat them, get rid of them. But but in a court, they have to try every single angle. So they're trying an angle.
Al, why not rely on the evidence? Why do they have to try to remove lawyers from the case instead of just relying on the evidence that they have?
Well,
they're prosecutors.
Part of this is a strategy on the part of the prosecution with regards to kind of whittling down where they're going to be able to go on the defense side. And it's not a bad strategy. And it doesn't necessarily have, the defense files these motions all the time. They're not getting a fair trial. They don't have this. They don't have that. This is going on in the whole 9 yards. Very rarely do you see the prosecution taking the affirmative steps that are being done here. This guy Brennan is.
But why are they doing it? So it's unusual, but why are they doing it?
It's a perfect way of whittling down arguments. Okay, the federal case is now done. Okay, no charges are going to be on against these police officers, so that goes through, right? So now all of a sudden, the defense side, they had a big pond that they could be throwing rocks in the beginning of this trial. Now that pond is getting smaller. It's getting smaller. And that's what's being done by the prosecution here.
But the prosecution's trying to get the lawyer.
I've seen comments that they hate Alan Jackson. I like Alan Jackson a lot. I think Alan Jackson's a great attorney. Don't get me wrong. I have nothing but respect for him. I don't think what happened here was a smart move on their part. I don't like the way it's now.
You're talking about I'm talking about why is the prosecution doing what they're doing?
Because they're trying to whittle down issues. They're trying to make
whittling down issues. They're trying to get rid of lawyers. Why are they trying to get rid of the lawyers?
What they're doing is they are putting a leash on the defense that is going to be to their benefit. It's a smart move. It's a smart move.
Okay, smart move. He's smart. Now listen, it's
not Fredo.
Now I want to pull this back to a bigger picture. There's a difference between being a prosecutor and a defense attorney. I posted a video on this. It's getting a lot of views. So a prosecutor should be concerned with one thing and one thing only: the truth. The truth, which equals justice, which is why, and a defense attorney is not concerned. And I usually use this as a little, I'm poking defense attorneys a little bit, but they're not concerned with the truth. Their ethical obligation is to their client, right? They're ethical. And that's why you see all of this. Yes, it is. I know you can't pull a fraud on the court,
exactly.
But your ethical obligation, though, is you need to do what's in the best interest of your client. The prosecution doesn't do what's in the best interest of winning. It's what's in the best interest of making sure the truth comes out. And that's a huge difference. That's a huge difference. If you are trying to win by going around the truth, that's a problem. And that is why defense attorneys make all of these motions and are always jumping up and down, and why prosecutors should not be doing that, because prosecutors have the truth on their side. They have the facts. They have the truth. They just have the burden of having to prove it. So put the facts out there and let the case stand and let the jury believe your case. Your case isn't about doing anything and everything to win. That's a defense attorney's job, is to do anything and everything to win within the bounds of obviously not perpetrating a fraud. Now, trying to get rid of lawyers is not perpetrating a fraud. But you're saying it's a strategy, right? I could see it as a strategy for a defense attorney, because you're trying to do anything and anything you can to win for your client, who you have your ethical obligation. But getting rid of defense attorneys has nothing to do with the truth coming out. Has nothing to do with it. It has everything to do about gamesmanship and trying to win and weaken the defense. That's all it is. You don't need to weaken the defense. You need to prove your case.
Isn't that an idealistic view, though, that the prosecution is seeking the truth? I mean, I watch a lot of TV. I watch a lot of crime shows. I watch a lot of dramas. And it just seems to me that the prosecution isn't always just seeking the truth. They want to win.
Well, here's the thing. You want to win because you want the truth to come out. You want the truth to come out. But you have to win based upon your evidence. You should not be trying to win based upon maneuvering. And listen, if I can get rid of Alan Jackson, that's just going to, completely decimate, the strongest part of the defense in front of the jury. So let me see if I can get rid of Alan Jackson. No, let me put my evidence out there. Let me prove my case. Let Alan Jackson make his arguments, but his arguments shouldn't matter because you have the truth on your side. If you're so afraid of his arguments, then maybe you don't believe in your case. And if you can't prove your case on its own, that's a problem. That's the problem. That's the way I looked at prosecuting.
First of all, so let's take a look at it from the standpoint of
I'm talking too loud today. I apologize.
Brennan comes in. He's not the attorney that tries the case first. Every attorney tries a case a different way. Brennan has a very, very distinct style. He's very much of a pit bull. He's an attack dog. He goes in, and with regards, he's had, experience as a defense counsel. He's exceedingly thorough. He's exceedingly good in cross-examination. He's got a lot of talent. Alan Jackson, same thing, right down the line. But I don't think that Brennan in any way thinks any of those guys is going to be thrown out. I don't think that. But it doesn't hurt to kind of throw a shot over the bow. And it doesn't hurt because here's the thing, Vin, that ARCA report was big.
Completely discounted by the first jury.
but it was a big, and it may have been, but now we're in the second jury, so we don't know what's going to happen on that. It should be brought out that there was conversations going back and forth and that they were paid. Okay, so what? That's good. That's fair. That you're getting the truth now, Vin. The truth is now out. Okay. Now you think that now that the feds have said we're not.
No, it's not the whole truth. The whole truth is the feds hired them and the FBI hired them.
Let me finish. Do you think maybe that is going to come out now in the second trial, that the feds hired this group and then decided not to, go forward with any charges against the police officers? You think that the defense wants that to come out? No, absolutely not. Okay, absolutely not. The defense is going to say, "Oh, wait a minute, and the feds hired you, right?" And then the feds decided that they're not going forward on any charges against any of these police officers. Correct. Okay, the defense doesn't going to want that out. So much for your truth. So much for your truth.
It should come out.
It will not come out. Defense will make sure that does not come out.
But it should.
But it's not going to, because it's going to say it's prejudicial. It's going to say it's prejudicial. It's going to make the witnesses that are police officers look better in the eyes of the jury, and that's prejudicial.
I don't know about that. Not if you get the whole truth.
So they couldn't be told about the federal investigation the last time around, and that helped the prosecution. And you're saying, and it seems true, that if it comes out this time, it helps the prosecution.
So it won't. It won't come out, but it should have come out initially, and it should come out afterwards. But if it didn't come out initially, get back to the goose and the gander. Which one's the male?
The gander.
The gander.
Yeah, I'm going to guess the gander.
All gooses are ladies.
That's why you have a goose somebody.
Goose somebody. Yeah,
I've been goosed.
You've been goosed.
I was.
Were you hanging out at Feathers again?
You have that kind of look that excites both sexes, Vinnie.
You went to Feathers, didn't you? Everyone goes to Feathers eventually.
No, I was goosed at a nightclub.
Feathers is a nightclub.
When you were working as a cocktail waitress?
No. I was goosed. What do you want me to say? You want me to lie? All right, I wasn't goosed.
You were goosed by a lady?
I was gandered.
You were goosed by a lady?
I was gandered. So Glow T, thank you so much. Please, Vinny, tell the truth. I'm getting a little disappointed. I tried my best for the truth. Al speaking his truth, and Jonesy will rule at the end of the show. Judge Jonesy.
Well, look, the bottom line is this, folks. Okay, as many of you people who have tried cases, I've tried hundreds. Okay, I'm going from a standpoint of what goes on in a trial. I'm not in any way attributing guilt to Ms. Reed. Okay, my thought is that like Vinny says, the truth should come out and everything else. I don't want to see an innocent person convicted, okay, by any stretch of the imagination. But we as attorneys have rules. We as attorneys have to follow certain things. And if we don't do that, I was just in court, okay, and if I perpetrate a fraud upon a tribunal, I'm going to lose my license. It's not supposed to happen. And the rules are designed so that we can have sidebar conferences. We can have, conferences where the jury is excluded. We have all of those opportunities, and that's what we do. Simple as that. I am not in any way, as I said before, I'm not condemning Alan Jackson. Okay. I don't think it was handled properly. Okay. He has his reasons for doing it the way he did. I just don't think it wouldn't have been the way I would have handled it. And it would not have had this kind of a problem. I would have been first out of the box and saying, we certainly have had conversations with these people. Why?
Alicia is congratulating us on the Silver Button Creator Award. Al, my eyes aren't what they used to be. Is Alicia wearing a Viva Las Tandinistas sweatshirt?
Viva Las Tandinistas, and looking sharp and gorgeous as all get out.
Fantastic. Absolutely. Look at that. Thank you, Alicia. That is awesome. I tried to make her picture as big as possible. That is awesome. All right, let me get back to where we were here. All right. And by the way, you can check out our true crime merch at the Vinnie Originale store. And you get, of course, get the allegedly merch is there, person of interest, some other things. And of course, the original Viva las Tangenistas.
And we've got the celebrity coming out soon, folks.
Fantastic. All right.
Yeah, which is going to go good for the whole situation there with Luigi, since he's the latest celebrity that's been hoisted in front of us. So like I said before, I've tried cases. I'm only looking at it from that standpoint. No disdain for Alan Jackson. I have no disdain for Mr. Brennan. I think Brennan argued very well. I think Alessio argued very well and did a nice job across the board. Okay. I don't think that, there's strategies of why we do things in trials, and Brennan's got a strategy and he's going forward with it.
Okay. Gringa, thank you. Can you please explain why the jury, knowing Arca was hired by the feds, would be unduly prejudicial? I still don't understand that. So I guess it's really two scenarios, because as Al has rightly pointed out, it might play a little differently in the retrial. But at the original trial, it was the prejudice against the prosecution, which, come on, grain of salt, please. Is there some sort of constitutional protection for the prosecution for that? I don't know. I think there's more protections for someone who's been accused of a crime. Anyhow.
But wait a minute. Those officers were being investigated as potentially being, guilty of a crime.
Right. But they weren't on trial. It was being
investigated.
In front of the jury.
And that would be an adverse inference, with regards to saying that they're springing up that. And by the way, officer, aren't the feds looking into you?
Well, they were, but they were.
And then that's you know what? And then I'll go on one further. Then the trial should not have started until the federal investigation was over. Okay, which never happens ever, and it drives me nuts. Okay,
a lot of times the feds don't even tell you that, number one, in a normal circumstance, the feds don't tell you an investigation is going on. Usually, they don't tell you the results of the investigation, and they don't give you the information from the investigation. But they did in this one. I don't know why. I still don't understand that. So again, it gets back to the uniqueness of this situation and this scenario, which has never played out in a courtroom before, ever. I could probably take that to the bank, that a factual scenario with these parallel investigations and the investigators being investigated while they're still investigating the investigation has never happened before. It may never happen again.
It is odd.
Oh, here we go. Britt K. The feds have not said the investigation is over. An anonymous source told a reporter that. Britt, that's right on. Because generally they don't say when it's over.
Correct.
And when you don't see a lot of people were expecting Brennan to announce that in court, but he didn't. So maybe it's not over. I don't know. Usually they don't say anything. The only time you find out is when you get indicted.
That's exactly on your door. That's usually the way it goes on that.
This reverse image presented by the prosecution goes back to a Columbo episode. A key element of a Columbo episode involving a photographer who committed a red rum was Columbo learning about photography so he could help to solve the crime. Now you don't know he's doing that. It just shows him dabbling in photography when he learns that a slide or a negative is inversed, and he realizes that evidence was false evidence was placed on the wrong side of the fireplace. When he realizes that, so he actually solved the crime based on that. It all goes back to Columbo. You can watch him every Saturday all day long on your cable.
See, the problem, ladies and gentlemen, is that
just one more thing.
He's the best.
He was a classic. So here's one from I'm gonna put this on. Thank you, Britt K. From Bange. How would you pronounce that?
Ooh.
Bange. It's very
exotic. How about bang?
I love it.
Bang.
Bang it. Bang it.
Bange.
What was that? You're French? the hell did I
I don't
miss?
know. I don't know. I don't know how to say that, but I love it. I think it's fantastic. Vinny, you are forgetting about the protective order. They were not supposed to contact them. All of this was revealed long time ago during the first trial, that there was contact because you had to coordinate them coming to court.
Right.
So the contact was from Jackson reaching out, because it was going to be his witness, reaching out and trying to coordinate everything. And then there was no more contact. Then you're in the middle of the trial. They show up, and between the voir dire or the voir dire and when they actually testified.
Is that like a thing in a French bathroom?
Yes, to clean yourself.
Right.
So you used it.
I always thought that was really
voir
sick.
dire. I'm on the voir dire. Leave me alone. So
sick.
So
I don't understand these.
But
French.
then it's again, Al, I get back to this, and Bange, it's the witness who reaches out to the defense team, because the witness has been placed in a very uncomfortable position of being a professional witness. And now I'm going to testify in a highly public trial. And the person who's going to question me has not spoken to me. We've had no communication. This is weird. It doesn't work this way. This is my professional reputation on the line. And that is the fault of everyone involved. But I would put it primarily on the court in coordinating and communicating with this expert witness, because they're an expert, but they really weren't supposed to be an expert witness. They were supposed to be more of a lay witness who is an expert. So it was a strange scenario. And the communication was initiated by the witness.
But should Jackson have said something?
Yeah,
that's the whole problem here.
Right.
I mean, look,
so there's the mistake. There's the mistake. He doesn't say, okay, and you get kicked off the case for that. But nothing happens if you take a piece of evidence and convert it and mislead the jury.
I'm hoping that none of them get kicked off. I don't think the defense team is going to get kicked off. If one is going, it would be Jackson. And I think that, I thought he was basically set up by Alessio. Okay, and being put out there, all right, because he's the guy that's not barred in Massachusetts. But the situation is that it's a smart strategy from the prosecution side, okay, to start showing the worms in the apple and going forward with that. Jackson made a mistake. Jackson made a mistake.
Right. It's not.
Okay.
That should not.
It should have been handled better, and I don't think anybody can disagree with me on that.
Right.
It should have been handled better, and unfortunately, Vin, it's not up to the expert witness. It's up to the person who calls the witness to make that situation right. They're the ones that need to do it. The expert witness should not be.
The court set up a really messed up situation, because all the things that had to be hidden from the jury. But here's the bottom line.
But that's and that's why it's up to the attorneys to unscramble the egg. Okay, that's what needs to be done.
And you're putting toothpaste back in a tube, Al. You can't.
Well, no, but that's not.
Well, then how did that guy get the semen in the tube?
That's not the point.
I don't know, Jonesey.
If you can't get the toothpaste in the tube, how did that guy get the semen in the tube, as was reported by yourself?
I know. I covered that story. I don't know how that happened.
Very carefully.
Yeah. Yeah. So here's the thing. The bottom line is, though, when you remove a lawyer from a case, you're not punishing the lawyer. You're punishing the client. You're punishing the defendant, who has the protections of the Constitution, which includes one of the amendments. Is it number 6, Al?
What? Number 6
is the amendment.
There's 6 amendments.
Yeah, they didn't get it right the first time. They had to keep amending this thing.
Wow.
So here's Marissa J. MSP, Massachusetts State Police, involved in Sandra Birchmore, was involved in the Karen Reed that didn't find text messages, which led to federal indictment of Matt Farewell. So the Sandra Birchmore case is this is a case, again, involving police, local police, and Trooper Proctor and the Massachusetts State Police. This is a woman whose untimely demise was blamed on her doing it herself, right? I'm trying to stay away from all those words, right? Of her doing it herself. And it was all covered up by Massachusetts State Police and the local police. And it's actually now a red rum case where an officer took her life because she was carrying life, I believe, and she was underage when they were doing all this to her, and they completely screwed up her life. Sandra Birchmore, that finally has seen the light of day. So there is a lot of problems up there in Massachusetts, and a lot of it involves Massachusetts State Police as well. So that's problematic. So that's why people are so skeptical. And that's why the skepticism exists and continues to grow, because you could say Karen Read is an outlier, but then you have Sandra Birchmore and you're like, wait a minute, what's going on?
So you wanted to go over the Sixth Amendment. Okay. The Sixth Amendment guarantees you the assistance of counsel.
Okay.
Okay. That's what it guarantees. It guarantees a speedy trial, impartial jury. I believe you got to have notice of what you're accused of. You have the right to confront witnesses, and then you have the right to have assistance of counsel. We have these things come by all the time, especially people who have been a public defender, like I've been a public defender. Okay, still am a public defender in municipalities in New Jersey. And then people say, I don't want him, okay, I want somebody else, but I don't want to pay. And the court have said, listen, you have the right to the assistance of counsel. You don't necessarily have the right to choose your counsel. Okay, so that comes into play if we're going to go with the Sixth Amendment.
You're talking about two different things here, Al. You're talking about someone who is getting a free attorney paid for by the state, right? Mm-hmm. To get the bare minimum. Are you telling me that a court can, by the same token, if you want to use that analogy for the Karen Read case, are you saying that the judge has the power to hire or tell her who's going to represent her?
No, that's not what I'm saying. Okay. I'm not saying that at all. What I'm saying is, and remember, I have said
no. You're trying to say you don't have counsel of your choice.
No, you're saying
so we can tell you who's going to represent.
You said the Sixth Amendment guarantees the right to choose your counsel. That's not what the Sixth Amendment says. As the right to the assistance of counsel. Okay, I'm only pointing out what is structurally in that document. Okay, that document back in December 15, 1791, when it was ratified. Okay, said that. Okay,
Al, you're always going so far back in time, like.
From the Civil War to civil rights and all the revolution fights, World War I and World War II, I'll always knows who is who. It's this day in history, this day in history, history. Now let's listen to his story.
All right, what's the story today?
Well, first of all, I saw some comments about that. Someone said that we believe Al is in front of a green screen because his soda keeps coming in and out of it. I would hope people think that that's a green screen, or I live in a black and white world.
we all are in black and white because we are folks who like to talk about days gone by.
That's
correct. I stole this backdrop from the channel that carried Merv Griffin. I found it in a dumpster, and I knew it was from the channel that carried the Merv Griffin show. And I love Merv Griffin. Went to Merv Griffin's Resorts International. The man invented Jeopardy. And he wrote the theme as well.
I wrote the theme. Yeah.
Yeah.
Also, whatchamacallit?
He took a look at Vanna White, and he said,
Wheel
"That's
of Fortune."
Yeah, Wheel of All right. So, 2/28, 2013, Pope Benedict XVI resigns. First pope since 1415 to resign. Okay, there have been 4 popes other than Pope Benedict who have resigned. Pope Gregory in 1046, Pope Benedict IX in 1045, Pope Celestine V in 1294, and Gregory XII in 1415. Another thing that happened today, which was something that I know that the two of you will appreciate quite well. On 2/28/1983, the last episode of MASH.
Ooh, that was a good one. Hawkeye
A two
went
and a half
crazy.
hour show, 2.5 hour special. MASH started in 1972. It went for 11 seasons, 256 episodes. Only 4 actors appeared in all 11 seasons. Can we name them?
And only one actor appeared in both the movie and the TV show.
That's great. That's Radar O'Reilly.
So
Okay.
he left. So Alan Alda, of course, is one of them. I would say Loretta Swith would be a second one.
Yep.
The others were interchangeable. Perhaps the priest.
William Christopher was Father Mulcahy. Father Mulcahy was in every episode, but the first episode had a different actor playing Father Mulcahy. But William Christopher took it in from the second episode all the way through the 11 seasons. And then the last one would be Jamie Farr. So Jamie Farr was in all 11 seasons of that.
Really? But he got a new job when Radar left, right? Didn't he take?
Well, he got promoted.
Yes.
He got promoted to
he became serious, and he stopped trying to get a Section 8 at that point.
Now the interesting thing is
Loudon Wainwright III also appeared in several MASH.
Oh God, Bruno Kirby appeared in it. Patrick Swayze appeared in it.
Bruno Kirby, yeah.
Bruno Kirby was in the first.
What was Bruno Kirby's famous commercial? Didn't he do an endorsement for a product? I
don't know, but Bruno Kirby was in the first episode of MASH. The pilot, he was in that. He was he played a corpseman in the hospital. But I mean, you take a look. Patrick Swayze was in that. John Ritter was in that. Yes. Leslie Nielsen was in that. So there was a large number. 11 seasons. Now the interesting thing is that MASH takes place during the Korean War.
Right. Okay? Originally it was the Vietnam War in the movie, but they decided that it was too close.
It was not. It was not. It was the
Korean. They decided it was too close to the volatile social feelings around the Vietnam War, so they changed it to Korea.
The movie became was the Korean War, took place in the Korean War. It's a phenomenal film. Came out at the same time as Patton, basically. Okay, so I mean, two extremes. But the interesting thing is that the Korean War itself was only 3 years, and the MASH series was 11 years.
That's pretty funny. I did not realize that. That's funny. By the way, the Unnamed True Crime Channel, thank you so much. Love it when Law Daddy and Law Daddy fight.
I was thinking I had to send you guys to 2 different corners, kind of thing, and give you a timeout. But I didn't think it actually.
Sometimes Al's just wrong, and you gotta correct him. That's all.
That's never gonna happen. All right, so now let's go into true crime today. 2/28/93. The ATF raids the Branch Davidian compound in Texas. Okay. And then on 2/28/97, something that I'll never forget watching, the North Hollywood shootout, where these two heavily armed bank robbers go in wearing homemade body armor, having all of these incredible weapons that were all modified so that they would go through cars, go through safes, go through all something, and of course go through people. Went in and then got into a shootout with the police. It was 12 police officers were badly wounded, 8 civilians were injured. The police weapons were bouncing off of these men. So they went in, some of the police officers ran into a gun shop and commandeered higher caliber weapons to be able to fight these guys. Both of these guys were subsequently taken out. The one had been badly wounded and then red rummed himself, and then the other one bled to death. But I mean, if you remember this, they had video of these guys walking down the street with high caliber weapons, just shooting indiscriminately across the board on everyone.
Perhaps
had
the most amazing shootout, that was videotaped live ever. It was
44 minutes.
Incredible.
44 minutes. Over 1,000 rounds were fired by these two. Over 1,300 rounds were fired by the police. The situation, these guys had robbed 2 banks previously, and they had also knocked off 2 armored cars. And by chance, police officers saw them going into the bank. That ended up precipitating this, and said, "We got a problem here." And then that's what ended up happening. So this was on this day, 2/28/1997, and that is our days in history.
Michelle, BSN, RN, KR, Karen Reed Defense versus Commonwealth. Understandably, mistakes happen in life, careers, etc. But patterns are not mistakes. Patterns are either gross incompetence or intentional misconduct. And there's something else here that happened during the course of the trial. And this is the subject of a new motion filed by the defense, motion to dismiss based upon I'm trying to remember the modifier they used, but it's the misconduct of the Commonwealth, of the government in this case. And that was those videotapes from the Sally Port, the ones that were entered into evidence and were reversed. There were other videos that were not provided to the defense. They were provided during the course of the trial. And then there's other videos that somehow don't exist anymore. So there's been a lot of shady dealings with the Sally Port video, which the defense from their perspective believes contains exculpatory material that they're getting in the midst of the trial. And that's what I'm saying is like goose gander here. Like let's tap the brakes on this a little bit, because we cannot overlook the conduct of the Commonwealth in the buildup and during the trial, and now all of a sudden go and eliminate the defense team or even one of their attorneys because of something that happened during the trial. There's got to be some level of balance and justice in all of this, that no one is perfect. Both sides are messing up. Nothing happened to the Commonwealth. So the same penalty should be paid by the defense, which is nothing.
All right. So before I challenge you on that, I
will just say this. The clock is still ticking. We are almost out of time.
Two things that I forgot to mention about MASH that I think are significant.
Oh.
MASH was the first show to actually show blood in a surgical situation. Okay. Prior to that, if you take a look at all the doctor shows and everything else, you never saw blood. And in MASH, you would see blood in their hands. You would see blood on their garments and, and on their smocks and things along those lines, and blood spurting. It's the first time a show actually allowed that. And the second thing is MASH is the first show to have a very, very popular character killed off, okay, which was Henry Blake, who wanted to leave the show, gave them a hard time, and then his episode, which was Abyssinia Henry, was the first time, and they didn't tell the cast that he was going to be, dead. And so he
was given furlough and sent home, and his helicopter crashed. And
the plane crashed over the Chinese Sea.
They had Radar, the character Radar, walk in. They said, "Read this." Walk into the operating room, and they didn't tell anybody in the room what was going to happen. He announced the passing of that beloved character, and nobody knew how to react. And they looked at each other, and I believe Hawkeye said, "Scalpel." And they continued the operation.
Yeah, they had the tears in their eyes because they didn't know that it was going to happen.
I cried.
Yeah. That was a very, very tough episode.
I believe they didn't use the music, and they did like one of my favorite techniques on TV, which is they fade it to black.
Oh, do you want to end the show that way one day? We could try it. I have to figure out how to do it. We'll have a real sad episode.
It would have to be at a sensitive moment.
Yeah.
All right. So going back to
April Diaz, great debate, guys, as usual. You three and every chatter. Vinny, I just wondered if you have 2 minutes to change shirts between shows. Okay. So I've been trying to figure out a way to maybe live stream this. And it was your idea, Jonesy, which is
right.
I have 2 shows every night, 8 o'clock to 9 o'clock, closing arguments. That's the one Al comes on all the time. And then I have Vinnie Politan Investigates from 9 to 10. But just like if you go up in my closet, you'll see I change clothes 3-4 times every day. And I change clothes between the end of the 8 o'clock show and the beginning of the 9 o'clock show. So I have.
You also have the 12-hour underwear rule.
Yes, if you wear underwear more than 12 hours, that's a problem.
I remember that to this day. When I worked at Court TV, you announced your 12-hour underwear room.
Bad things happen. Bad things happen.
Nothing
good happens after 12 hours. Nothing good happens after. So I change, right? Like in the studio, there's like this little nook because they got to come in and move some of the pieces around in the set. But I go in this little nook and I take off the jacket, the tie, the shirt. I got to take the microphone off. I got to take the earpiece out. And then I put on my new shirt. I got to undo my buckle and my zipper a little bit to tuck in the shirt. Then I've got to get the microphone replaced. And then I've got to button up the shirt. Then I've got to put the earpiece back there. And then I've got to check the mirror, make sure that the hair didn't get messed up in all of this chaos.
You need theatrical clothing that you can like tear from the back.
Yeah, but I do it every night. And I'm just trying to figure out a way if I could strategically place the cameras so you understand what I'm doing, but you don't see what I'm doing. Maybe one of those.
For those of you scoring at home,
it's like it'll be like maybe like on was it Petticoat Junction where they go.
Yes. That's right. There's a little hotel called the Shady Rest at the junction.
Well, before they showed that kind of thing on TV, that was a classic in television where the lady would get dressed behind a partition, and then all the things like the bra and stuff like that would like dangle over, giving you the image, the idea.
Right. Now, would you watch that live stream every night, Jonesy, or what? You would watch it every night.
Hell yeah! I love nothing more than an outfit change. I'm famous for my outfit.
I could go viral. It could be viral.
Yes.
Al would not watch it.
Lord,
Al would cover his eyes.
Deliver me from this.
Oh,
I would not be watching that, Ben. I'm sorry.
Our friend Lauren Katie said, just wear an undershirt. I can't wear an undershirt because in the 9 o'clock show, I have a shirt with no tie, and I leave the top 2 buttons unbuttoned.
But so that's you have a V-neck shirt like I have, and you can get the top 2 off
at the Academy Awards.
A V-neck T-shirt, yes.
At the Academy Awards, and this is timely, Sylvester Stallone famously, when he was nominated for Rocky, wore a tuxedo without a bow tie, if I'm not mistaken, and had a couple of buttons undone. Like, he was presenting that Stallone type image.
Crazy. All right, guys, we're out of time. This was a great show. Good, vigorous debate. Good debate in the chat. Just be nice to each other. It's nothing poisonal. It's not poisonal. It's just business, Michael. Just business. All right. Al, where can folks find you?
Well, Ben, a Monday night I will be on with you. Okay, closing arguments from 8 to 9. You can get me on X at Legal Weapon 3. And if you do comments on YouTube, I do comment back. So I will respond. And, hasta la vista, Tangenistas.
There you go. Gina M telling us it's a bidet. Go ahead, Jonesy.
I actually knew that. I just wanted something to say. Anyway, glennjones.net, Glenn with 1 N. You can find all of my frequencies, archive streams, and AMs and FMs.
All right. You can find me 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock, Court TV, every night. True crime, live, unfiltered, unscripted. Only guy on TV doing it. Say good night, Jonesy.
Good night, Jonesy.
Oh, thank you to the mods. Thank you to our mods, to our Gen X, Frankie Figs, Ashley Bouchard, and of course, Jennifer Sube. We appreciate it. It got so heated. We didn't have time to do everything we wanted to do. We never do. But I'm sorry, Jonesy. I jumped the gun. Say goodnight, Jonesy.
Good night, Jonesy.
See all of you in court. Somebody say Everybody say